Akaza might be the easiest villain in Demon Slayer to forgive. We know what happened to him, we know why he got angry, we know exactly what he lost and what kind of life he could have had instead. And when that life was taken from him, Muzan appeared out of nowhere. And Hakuji, with nothing left to lose, accepted his fate. So here's the question you're going to sit with for the next 8 minutes. If you understand exactly why someone became a monster, does that make the monster less responsible for what he did? Akaza's story gives you every reason to sympathize with him. But sympathy was never the same thing as innocence. That's what makes him more than just the saddest villain in this show. By the end of this video, the question won't be who Akaza was. It will be what you're willing to forgive. Here's what makes Akaza uncomfortable to think about. Before he was upper rank 3, he was Hakuji, a criminal, a desperate son, a student, a man who fell in love, a man who only wanted an ordinary life, and eventually, a demon who killed human beings. Those aren't four different people. They're the same person at four different points of breaking. Reduce him to tragic villain, and you erase the people he hurt. Reduce him to monster, and you erase the person who existed before the monster did. So the real question isn't which version of Akaza is true. It's whether both versions can be true at the same time and what that does to how you judge him. Let's start where he did. Not as a demon, as a boy who just wanted to keep his father alive. Hakuji stole because his father was sick and couldn't afford medicine. That's the whole crime. A boy stealing to keep someone alive. His father took his own life anyway, unable to live with what his son had become because of him. Here's the first distinction this video is going to keep coming back to. Explanation is not the same as justification. Hakuji's crime is understandable. Anyone can see why he did it. But understandable was never the same thing as morally correct. His intentions were compassionate. His actions still broke the law. That gap between what Akaza feels and what Akaza does ends up defining every choice he makes for the rest of his life. And here's what most retellings skip past at this exact point. He hadn't lost everything yet. He was about to be handed a way out. A dojo master named Kezo takes him in. For the first time, Hakuji doesn't need to steal. He gets discipline instead of desperation, purpose instead of survival, and he gets Kuyuki. This is the part most Akaza videos rush through, and it's the part that matters most. Hakuji was not destined to become a monster. He was given a second life, a real one with a future built into it, which means whatever happens next isn't inevitable. It's a choice, or at least the result of one. Hold on to that, because everything is about to be taken from him again. And this time, the question isn't going to be about what he lost. It's going to be about what he does with the loss. Hakuji finally has what he always wanted: a family, a future, someone worth protecting. He isn't just surviving anymore, he's building something. Then it's taken from him. You might already be thinking it. Of course, he snapped. That's exactly where this video needs to slow down. What would you do if everything you loved was taken from you in a single day? Grief is the normal answer to that question. Hakuji's answer was 67 bodies. Understanding why he broke isn't in question here, but understanding his reaction and believing it was justified are two different things. Because his revenge didn't just punish the people responsible, it turned his grief into indiscriminate violence. Were all 67 of them actually responsible for what happened to Kezo and Kuyuki? That's the question this video isn't going to let you skip past. This is where the story usually gets simplified. And then Muzan turned him into a demon. That's not really what happens. Akaza doesn't become a demon because he stops caring. He becomes one because the way he cares has been completely corrupted. Which is why, as a demon, he isn't empty. He respects strong opponents. He despises weakness. He refuses to attack women. He has a code, and that should bother you more than if he had none at all. A monster with no morals is easy to hate. A monster who still has some is a lot harder to place. Which brings up to the real question this video has been building toward. Can someone have a moral code while still committing something fundamentally immoral? Ask yourself, what kind of demon refuses to kill women? What kind of demon respects the warriors he's about to destroy? What kind of demon treats strength like a virtue and cowardice like a sin? That's Akaza. He recognizes talent. He holds something close to loyalty toward Muzan, even if it's complicated. And then, without hesitation, he kills humans anyway. He takes part in a system built entirely on consuming human lives. He fights Tanjiro. He tries to kill Rengoku. So can someone have morals while committing immoral acts? Yes. And that might be the most important thing to understand about him. A person doesn't need to be completely evil to do evil things. Which brings us to the fight that puts everything he believes on trial. Akaza sees Rengoku as someone worth respecting. Rengoku sees Akaza as something that has to be stopped. Neither of them is wrong. Become a demon, Akaza tells him. You can become stronger. Rengoku's answer is in one sentence. I will not. That's not just a fight. That's two philosophies colliding. Akaza believes strength lets you escape suffering. Rengoku believes morality is what gives a human life meaning in the first place. Trace that belief all the way back, and it connects straight to Hakuji. He lost everything because life was fragile. So his solution became simple. If life is the thing that gets taken from you, stop being alive in any way that can be taken. That's tragic. It's also morally horrifying. And it leads straight to the one question this whole video has been walking toward. Here's the case for it. He suffered enormously. He lost his father, then Kezu, then Kuyuki. He was psychologically broken before Muzan ever found him. His memories were suppressed. The demon was never the full picture of who Hakuji had been. Here's the case against it. Other people suffered too. Victimhood doesn't grant permission to create new victims. He kept choosing violence. The people he killed weren't responsible for his trauma. Understanding his pain doesn't return a single life he took. So where does that leave you? Maybe here. You can forgive a person without pretending their actions were acceptable. You can understand how someone became a monster without pretending they weren't responsible for what they did as one. Akaza's tragedy was never a good man became evil. It's harder than that. A wounded man found a way to survive his pain. And the way he survived it turned him into someone capable of inflicting that same pain on others. His tragedy doesn't absolve him. It makes his responsibility harder to look away from. Maybe that's why he's so difficult to hate. Not because he was secretly innocent, not because his victims don't matter, not because a sad childhood balances out a lifetime of violence. It's because somewhere in his story, you can actually see the exact moment a human being stopped knowing what to do with his pain. Hakuji lost his father. Hakuji lost Kezo. Then he lost Koyuki. And eventually he lost himself. But losing yourself was never the same as losing responsibility for what comes after. Maybe that's the real difference between understanding a villain and forgiving one. You can understand the wound without excusing what the wounded person did with it. So here's the same question I opened with. If you understand exactly why someone became a monster, does that make the monster less responsible for what he did? You already know where I land. I want to know where you land. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.